All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me. And I'm going to stop using the week because since I missed 2 weeks now, like what would it be? Week 10, but it's really week 8. So I'm just going to probably not name them that anymore. So just so there's no confusion and people go, what are you talking about? So anyway, I'm seeing just wonderful things on the Facebook group and people really implementing a lot of the sacred spaces principles and figuring out things on their own. And I just find it so amazing because I think, well, some people have gone, why don't you give me all the information? Tell me all the steps. Let me go through everything that I got. I'm like, no, because that would be a teacher. I wouldn't be a good teacher if I told you everything and every way to do it. I want to give you some guidelines, some principles to work from. Guys, just take them into brilliant places and use them in ways maybe I didn't even think about doing them. And I think this is how we grow this. I was going to call it a movement. It's a change in the way we are all dealing with horses and all training and all about ourselves and how we are. And it's so this great big movement. And I think, as I talked about last time, it's all about, can we go with the free flow? Can we be in that flow place? And can we things when they come up and have a little bit of stuff over here that we can use to deal with things that come up? And then of course, I love to talk on my consults, and what I'm doing is that I'm getting to talk to people all over the world, and this is so amazing to me that this change in the way that we communicate because of what has happened in the world and all the restrictions on where we go, that we're actually opening ourselves up to more some ways that we can now look beyond our little corner of the world and just embrace like other ideas from other places and be with other have them. Oh, it's just for me so beautiful to see this all happening and to know that this work that we are all doing together to change things is getting out to all over the world. I mean, I don't know that anywhere it hasn't come that I haven't been just surprised, like, really, it got to that place? Um, and it's all of us doing that. It's all of us putting this getting out and it's growing and at the same time as it grows it's not just helping us, it's helping our horse community, it's helping our horses, it's helping everything. And in this world now where everything's so uncertain, this is the one certainty we have, is that we can spread this kind of information, we can spread this, then it shows up in our horses, it shows up in our relationships, that they're getting better. And I feel like we're all getting closer as a community. So that to me is just the best part of all this work. And like I said, and seeing everyone's smiling faces every week. Um, so I wonder what I'll talk about. And I sit here in my chair, and today I had a forum that was on, I was part of a forum that were talking about equine assisted mental health and equine assisted learning, and where that group that do that are going as a, and some of the challenges they face. And many of them are the same challenges we face as individual horse owners that are own horses. And I I like to see that we start embracing all those things. Are we just learning for ourselves, or are we our horses and really teaching them and learning how to teach them? And I think that's where equine assisted learning has always been in a place where about being a tool to do the work. And we're seeing horses that are not suited for that work, and they're struggling, and behaviors we're seeing, that come up on my side. It's like, it was so funny today that biting was one of the biggest things that these people were talking about with behavioral problems, their horse equine assisted learning programs. And isn't that funny that we're seeing that same thing on our side too? I don't mean funny, but kind of disturbing. You know what I mean? It's like, why is that so pervasive now? And I didn't get to talk a lot about that on the site today, but as we've talked about it in this group, that this level of anxiety that's in the world right now and that everybody's experiencing in some degree or another is transferring to our horses, and they're picking it up, and so it's just feeding on itself. And if we can somehow get just temper that anxiety a little bit. And there's sometimes when I think, well, I can deal with people that come in with anxiety. There's some things I can do, but there's some things that are out of my control. And I don't have the training or the knowledge to help people who have extreme anxiety. And so, you know, it's sad if I have to say, well, you know, you can go to somebody else and they can maybe help you with that because I can't. And that's part of this whole thing, is like, what is my, and what am I capable of doing and what am I not capable of handling? And I'm going to say right up front that sometimes the anxiety piece is way too much for me to go into, because it ends up being a lot of different things that are in that scope of therapy, and really need someone that's got a lot more training in those areas. I feel like if it's with the horse and they have anxiety, if they're struggling with trauma, I'm right on it. I'm right on. Got that down. But I don't think I'm suited to go back and deal with the person trauma, because we all know, like, what are our limits and what are we good at. And I can tell you right now, I'm too empathic, and I can't do people trauma day in and day out. And there's people that love to do that and they thrive on that work. And I think that's beautiful. And I send them off and do that. But I'm going to say I'm not one of those. And part of it is this piece of when we talk about intuition and being open. I've spent too much time being way open and feeling everything that comes in. And then to shut off parts of that now is very difficult for me. And somebody said, well, you just shut it down. You just put up walls and you shut off all that information. And it's like, no, that means, like, if you told me to keep my eyes open but don't see, it's not possible anymore. Something happened that it's no longer possible for me to shut out certain things. And so, in that respect, it's about self care I do and what is not going to be good for me in the long run. And I think that's good for all of us to take into account. Like, what can we handle? What should we subject ourselves to now in light of all this chaos that's going around? Because we've got to keep steady, not only for ourselves, but it is for sure with our horses, that we need to be able to be the best we can be when we're with them. And so I'm learning that the hard way about self-care. How do I keep doing this work to the maximum that I can do it? And what are the things that are drawing me away or taking my energy or making me less able? And so those are like a lot of people here, those are the things we struggle with, and those are the things that we look in our life to get balance, and especially now. So if you call and go, I've got this, a whole bunch of trauma and all this, and I'm gonna probably tell you, we can the small stuff, but I probably need to send you somewhere to somebody that's really got good knowledge in that area. And I think I've spoken of this before, because I've got a does a lot of psychotherapy, and she has some very unique techniques in terms of trauma with people, and she knows who to send people to specific things. And I think I'm going to do some podcasts with her, so that would give you guys other information in case you run across people that are struggling and you go, okay, I don't have a resource, where can I get help for them? And I see this, we're that family, and it's like, if I can help send you to somebody that I think can do a better job, I'm going to do it. And the same is true with horses. I mean, if there was something I didn't think I could handle, I would say tell you, if you came to me for help. But after 40 some years, I've pretty much seen pretty much everything that happens within the show world versus the real, the other world of horses and starting horses all the way up to showing at the highest levels. And it's like so I've seen a bunch of stuff in my lifetime. So hopefully I can draw on all that to help everybody here that calls me. So today, what I want to kind of talk a little bit about is, and I've seen it come up, and on not only my site but other sites where people are starting to do this work with, okay, I'm going to get the horse and I can relax the horse and all these. It's just amazing. Like people have just really embraced this and they're doing such a great job and they're getting their horses relaxed. I see the horses laying down, they're having great releases and yawning, and it's like it's all great. And they're, most of the time they're sitting with their horse. This is all wonderful work. And um, what I want everybody to know, and I think I've mentioned this before, is that that's not all this is. It's like it's wonderful that we have that, and I want to start at that place where we can get that horse and the relaxation. But yes, it's us being able to take that relaxation in ourselves and in our horse, and then start working what we say, working our horse, doing other things with our horse, knowing that we can once we get good at this and staying in our space, that we can do anything in that space and we can start running energy in that space that the horse can perform at its highest level. And that's kind of where we're going to progress here as a group later on. It's like, now we got that. You get knocked out of your space very often. Can you stay in it? And those you're practicing now through this meditative place and being quiet with your horse. And but I just wanted to point out there is such a thing as waking meditation, and this is where you stay in a low alpha brainwave. You could even be, if you're really do theta, which is a really slow brainwave. It's usually the sleeping one, but that's the one where amazing things happen. If you can get it slowed down, you're still awake and you're still performing. It's a really cool place to be. So just to know that we're working toward those things, but it takes some time. You to send that low alpha with your horse and experience what that feels like so you can then take it to everything you do. All you have to do then is recreate the feeling that you had when you sat with your horse in that quiet space, and then put it in your life and put it in different segments. And this is where, just like everything I do it in little bits and pieces. So I know I talked to somebody this week and she said, gosh, it's so hard to stay in that space very long, because I just can't do it. And I'm like, yeah, because your brain is not programmed to do that. You've programmed your brain to be paying attention to everything that's going on and noticing and being distracted and all that. And for you to stay in one space, in one brainwave pattern, it's very, very fatiguing. I mean, one person said, I think I slept for 2 days after we did our session. And it's like, yeah, it's just like if you were to exercise your body and you just started out and you're like, wow, I'm sore and I can't move and I'm really tired. And just know this too shall pass, because you can start to get where this becomes your normal state. And I think this person asked me, she said, well, are you at like in that relaxed place? And it's like, I would say 99% of my time I spend there, which is, it's so wonderful. And when you can get to this place, like, oh my God, if I can create calmness on the spot, no matter where I'm at, what a great tool, right? And that's what we're doing by sitting with our horses at first and being able to figure out where that calm space is first. Because if we don't know it even exists, we can't recreate it. Okay? So we're just practicing slowly and we're getting ourselves ready to do more work. But I've cautioned people before, if you go too fast and you try to stay there too long, you can kind of blow yourself out. It's almost like you can, I don't know what to to equate it to. Somebody was talking about it once when I was in a class, and he said, well, it's like we really enjoyed that space so much, and we stayed there and we tried to get there all the time, and then we did it too fast, and it was like the I guess if you did drugs and then you had the downward spiral, after you kind of OD'd on everything, and then you had this just big. He said, no, don't do it like that. Do it slowly. And so this is one of the reasons why I don't go jump ahead and go, hey, now we're going to do this, and now we're going to do that. I want this to feel solid here in this space of calm, okay, so that you can create it at any moment that you want. And as we're starting to be in that space, and I'm seeing so many people have these great experiences, that when we start to train our horse, when we're in this space, things are different. Like, I do not do the same training wise as I used to do. And this gets down, I was thinking, what is the difference? And I really wanted to look at what would I use to describe how I used to train versus the way I train now. And there are some people that are doing the training, and I think that's beautiful, because relational is everything I'm talking about in our connection piece. And what we're trying to do is about the relationship, right? And so it almost requires a totally different outing, a totally different set of tools you might use, or a different application of the tools is a better way to say it, I think. Um, the other type of training is really, I don't want to offend anyone. Of course, it's almost impossible. There's been the dominance-based training, and that's what a lot of training has been based on. It's like stimulus response. If it doesn't do it right, then there's some type of punishment, and there's this idea of a hierarchy that we are above the horse, and so we tell the horse what to do. And if he doesn't do it, then there is some kind of consequence on the horse's end if they don't do what we want. And although dominance training appears to work well, and it does in many instances, if we're looking for relational training and we're wanting to connect with our horse and do it differently, who are on different ends of the spectrum, we can't do relational and building this relationship over here and then go, yeah, but now I'm going to dominate you, and you got to do this and you got to do that, and I'm going to, all that. And I'm like, oh, so this is really hard, because now we're at this crossroads of you almost have to now choose one or the other. And that's where it's kind of a little bit murky grounds right now, because I'm seeing some people that are in that transition where they're trying to become more relational based training, but they're still using some really dominance based techniques. And so, like, how do we make this a cleaner transition? And I don't know if there is a true answer, because we also have those horses that we're trained dominance based lagging behind also in their understanding of, like, what is relational training. We don't get it. We're used to just you tell us something and we do it. That's, and that was drilled into their brain. That's all been put in there. And so we're talking about this big shift, and it may take a little while for kind of even out and for us to all start seeing where is relational training fit and what are the new ways to work within that model of relational training versus dominance-based training. And I'm not going to say one is better than the other, because then that gets in. This was on this forum that I was at. It got into this really ugly place where somebody said a word that was perceived as dominance-based training, and they got annihilated on this site. And I thought, no, let's be kinder to each other. We are all transitioning here to a different way of thinking and a different way of doing. Let's all be kind. And if you get triggered by some word, let's talk about it. And on that side, it was not a good discussion. It was not. And on my side, sacred spaces, I always think this is the kind of space, and really helps us out with monitoring and making sure we don't get those kind of conversations where that turns into um, yelling at somebody or putting them down for belief system that they had. We're all doing the best we can, and what I love is that we're all here on this side doing the best we can for our horse. And maybe 20 years from now, they're going to go, you know what, you did all these things wrong. You didn't even know. Now the science says this, and I'll go, I know the science now says that, and now I'll do different. And I think that's all we can say, and all we can do is, now that I know more, and I can tell you this has been, when I think back of things that I've done to horses in the past, because I was told that was the right way to do it, and those were all my instructors saying you have to do it this way, and otherwise you're not going to be a trainer and you don't have any business doing this. God, it said, no, God, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right. And I did it anyway. And now I have to look back and go, gosh darn it, why didn't I stand up for what I believed at the time? And instead I went and caved to pressure. And that's the beauty of getting old and gray hairs, is now I don't care. And now I say whatever I want over there for the, so I think now I'm always on the pursuit. Like I believe everybody in this group is we are to find the best ways. And we may stumble sometimes, we may find things that we didn't do right in the past, but we're going to do different. Or maybe there's things that we did last that I wouldn't do again. And I can tell you from a year ago on things that I did, there is no me to what I did last year or a little over a year ago to right now. And there was not any similarity to the time that I wrote the book to things I had done before I did the book. So it's all just progressing along. And the more horses, the more people I work with, the more information I get to have. And that the more information then I get to share. It's like, here's what worked, here's what didn't work. Okay. So that was really my rant on relational versus dominance training. But relational training, again, as we look into that, we don't have any framework for what that looks like. We don't have people, a whole lot of people out there doing it. So we don't know, how do we know if that one thing we used to do fits in with what we're doing now with trying to create this connection with our horse and a greater understanding? And as I go through the summer, I'm going to do more videos because I think it's important that people see this in action, because there isn't really a lot of visual for people to look at. And it's like, what does that, when the horse does that, wouldn't you just get mad and like do something with that? And I go, no. And they would go, why? Why? Because that's not going to do any good. Now that I know how this all works in the brain, in the learning of the horse, I would do that. Because now I'm working in that other piece, as you know, with the trauma that horses are carrying from this past training that people have done, and it wasn't conducive for the horse or its learning, and it ended up getting set in its body as trauma. And so now I'm so aware of what I'm doing, and is that down the road going to be the best thing for that horse? And I'm just gonna, I hope one of my friends doesn't watch this, because this is one of his favorite techniques, is um, we do laying down of horses through, like, I guess, our energy and everything and keeping it good. And when we see the horse lay down, it's like, yes. There's the old way of dealing with horse behavior and horses that don't comply, of physically laying them down, mechanically, some other fashion, to force them to lay down. And the theory there was that if you lay the horse down, you can, their mind as a prey animal, they are going to submit. They're going to think they're going to die. And then you come in as the savior first by petting it and while it's down and in confinement with its legs or however you got it down. And then that's going to fix it and that's create this bond with the horse to you because it's going to look to you as its leader then. But I'm going to say I've seen this happen too many times, and some things that I've seen from that method, which is dominance based, right? I'm the leader, you're going to do what I say. If you don't, I'm going to lay you down physically so that you have no ability to run away. You have lost all your ability to fight. And when you finally submit, everything's going to be okay. And for me, why? It just does not gel. And it's about getting that horse into that place where, remember, we have fright, flight, freeze. And then the last one is fawn, Fawn. And that's Faun. I think I spelled it wrong. I went to spell it. And fawn is a really tricky space. It's the place where you get obedience, but not because that being wants it. And in human terms, you've probably heard of the time this thing called Stockholm syndrome. And it's essentially where people are, let's say they got kidnapped and they were held by these people and they thought they were going to die. And then they somehow, during that process, they align with the person that's the abuser or the kidnapper. And they start aligning with them. And I think Patty Hearst was one of the, if you look back on that, Patty Hearst was one of the people that would be a poster child for Stockholm Syndrome, or she started doing the deeds for the people who actually kidnapped her. And so if I think about it, there's another reason I wouldn't mechanically lay a horse down, especially if it was acting up and there was a behavior that you wanted to stop and you laid that horse down. And then as it laid down, it realized everything stopped, that there was no more abuse or no more, it was quiet. So then in the future, and I have seen this a lot of times, horses that get stressed out about something and they lay down automatically by themselves. And the person goes, yeah, my horse, I'm just riding on the trail and it lays down. I'm like, I can almost guess that was a technique that was used to get that horse to comply in some way. And so that's that dominance-based thing. No. What we're talking about is relational based, laying down. That horse lays down because it wants to, because we have created a safe space for that horse to be in. And it becomes so relaxed and totally relax itself, knowing it's safe and not because it has to comply with some request that we've made that it didn't do something right. Um, so I'm finding, it's like, it's great. Like we have, as we start getting our horses more relaxed and they're like laying down, it's like, would we end up with the same problem? Like they get too relaxed on something and they just decide to lay down. I haven't seen that yet. And it also gets into, as we get more sophisticated with our energy, we know how to go, okay, the horse is getting too relaxed, so let's up the energy a bit here and ask him to go. Okay. So in relational training, it's so funny because I think of training, they talk about the theory, okay, they always say, well, a horse is a prey animal. So we're going to use this dominance theory to train them based on what we know about prey animals, okay? And that's great. Horses are prey animals. That's a logical way to think about it. But however, horses are also relational beings. If you think about horses, what do they want more than anything else? Relationship with another horse. They will seek relationships. You know how horses don't like to be alone. They're not loners. They're relational. So why don't we approach training from that relational perspective versus the dominance? And maybe that's just from me coming from a woman's point of view. I don't know. I don't know. But it's for me, it gels better in my mind, in my body. That feels like a better approach for me to look at it as how can I foster this relationship? And then as a relational being, and as well as I do, like if you have friends that you enjoy being around, you do a lot of stuff for that person without even being asked. You don't have to ask anymore. They just are willing, and it's like, can I help you? Can I think him? And isn't that what we want our horses to do, is look to us and say, wow, you look fun. I'm going to hang out with you, and I want to have the relationship with you. And for me, having trained horses relationally, which I didn't even know there was such a thing back in the day, I guess I just naturally did it that way. But I haven't had issues with my horses. I haven't had these things show up, and I never really knew why, but it's because I approached it from this different angle. It's not like I'm going to just dominate you, and then when you get frustrated with that domination, you're going to act out in some way, and then I'm going to have to correct you for it. And so that's a cycle that you get into. It's, and with relational, it's like I go out there, what can I do to support you today, horse? And it goes, no, I'm here to support you today. And saw this on a couple posts this week where, somebody said, well, I was feeling really sad, and I went in there and told my horse, and it came over and offered its support to me. And that is what I'm striving for. And I'm here to go, you know what? If that's what you want, you're in the right place. If it's not, go find a person that does more dominance-based training. That's fine. And we're not gonna think badly or judge you for that, because like I said, we're all in our transitional space of where are we going with this. Okay, so really this is kind of the gist of what I wanted to talk about today. And I was thinking about half hour, and I think I did about a half hour of talking. And now what I would like is we can practice with Carolyn's help if she's willing. I'm going to see if anybody wants to raise their hand and ask questions, because I know they after the last one, a lot of people wanted to talk, and I want to give people that opportunity too, not just me up here blabbling on about things. So
Susan, can I just
we
tell
can
people
we
where
can
to
also learn
find
from
the raise hand option?
Yes, we can.
Okay. If you don't know where the raise hand option is, at the bottom of your screen it says participants with the little number 47. If you click on that, it'll open up the list of participants, and you'll see it should say like invite me, mute me, and raise hand. And if you press the little raise hand, a little blue hand will come next to you. And if you hit that again, it'll lower your hand. So you can find it in the participants box.
Okay.
I have a invite
go
me,
ahead.
mute me, but no raise hand here.
That's the same thing with me, that there's no flag that I'm seeing that it says under more, it says rename or mute unmute. There's no flag showing on the screen that I see.
Oh,
So
you have to hit your name first, and then it will show you.
I got you.
Yeah, I clicked my name first. No.
So you don't have to click your name. If you just open the participants box.
Yeah.
Are you able? You're unmuted. I think you just went somewhere else.
What I did was I had to tap on my name, and then it showed me the option of raising my hand.
Oh, you got a couple raised hands on there, Susan.
Yay, I see them. Okay. Oh, no, too many. Just bear with me. I'm just weird. So Letha, are you there still?
I'm here.
Okay. Oh, she muted herself.
Can
Oh, there you are.
you hear me?
Did you have a question?
Yeah. I don't own horses, but I have friends who allow me to be with their horses, and I just love the your method and how it just resonates with me because that's what I've been doing with the horses. This weekend though, I wanted to lunge Chili, and every time I approach Chili, I do the the meditation where I tell him in my mind and my energy what I want him to do, and he's okay with it. But as soon as I put the get the to harness him, he starts to walk away. He does live with another horse, an older horse who is the
Okay.
leader. So I give a picture to her and say, I would love for you to come watch us lunge, and smile with gratitude. And it works every time. However, I have to go through that horse before Chili can comply. And when she complies, she kind of resists each time, and I have to go in circles before we even about 10 circles before we get to the pin. So what else can I do to help Chili? I mean, I groom and then I meditate with them before I try to do this. But as soon as I get that halter up, she's out of here.
This is a really good question, and one that's really common also. So we're going from that stays with you, right? When you're just relaxed and you're doing your thing, he's right there, right? Okay. And then you go
Yes.
get the halter, and then he's like, I'm out of here. Yeah,
Yes.
no. Okay. So this is when we start playing with different energies. So do you see, like, and then you lost connection, right? So he was there, then he disconnected from you. Okay. So
Yes.
this is the game, and this is fun because you have to again slow down on this game and go, okay, this is may take me some time. What you're gonna have to do is when you bring her, you're gonna see at what point does he leave, and at what point does your intention change
Mm.
from now is fault to now I'm going to catch you. And it's a very subtle change a lot of times. It's very difficult to feel that until you start noticing what did I do different to cause the disconnection? Okay? Because there
Mm.
usually is some little thing that says to the horse, okay, now it's about, wow. Okay, so we're going to have to start having him rethink what that means. And one of the ways that I do, I will have somebody have their halter, and then I will have them pick an energy that draws that horse to him every time. You get to practice this one out there going, I'm going to try this one. And you may
Mm.
put fun or something, and you really get into that and see if you draw him to you. Okay. And then if that one doesn't work, you go to another one. Is it safety and security he wants? Is it comfort? Is it, so you go through a whole bunch of stuff until you see that you can keep him there no matter whether you have that halter there or not. But this is where you use your intuition. What do I think that horse wants? Okay. And how would I motivate him to stay with me when it's the halter's coming out? And for him, probably somewhere in his life, the halter meant work, something not fun. And so you're going to have to reprogram that thought into, well, even though the halter comes out, things are still fun. Huh. Okay. So you're always playing with where does a disconnect happen and up, and you call him back in and say, yeah, I have this, but it still means fun. Okay.
Thank
And
you.
we can, because it gets into, this is one of those where it's easier when you're standing there with the person and they can see the reactions of the horse when you change and what draws them in. I had a horse I worked with, just for an example of this very way of like drawing the horse in and how do I know, and so this had been a dude horse, and of course nothing is fun for a dude horse. I wouldn't think, it's like, oh boy, another ride, with somebody I don't know, kicking on my sides or pulling me around, whatever. But he's resigned to it, and he's a good boy, and he's now at a different house. And I thought, he looks a little sad. He just looks like he's resigned, more than sad, just resigned to, well, I endure people, and they don't really have much to offer, right? And in this relational training, this is about us going, I can recognize this being and see that there's something they need, what it be I can offer. And so this horse, he was way out, probably 50, 100 feet away. And I was working with her on another horse, and I thought, I wonder what he needs. And I just ran through it, and I thought, nah. His name was Sarge. Sarge is a he was very sad everything, and I thought, Sarge needs some fun. I'm just gonna run a little fun and see what happens. So I'm standing in a corral, like I said, about 100 feet away, and I start thinking fun, and I'm recreating that feeling in my body and memories of that, and not focused on him at all. And all of a sudden, Sarge comes across the field, and he's got these big shoulders, big quarter horse, and he's moving real quick over there, and he just busts his way through the gate, makes the other horse just go out of the way, and all of a sudden he's right there. I'm here for fun, ma'am. And it was so cute. And I'm thinking, this is what we need to look at. How do we find those things? And when we do, it's like, isn't that cool? We gave him something he needed or that he desired. Maybe he didn't need fun, but boy, once he was there, it was like, oh, I'm going to hang out with you. You're fun. You're fun. And so just think of it in that respect, okay, now we're going to get more sophisticated in the use of our emotions. We don't just stay in one. We now are being relational, and we're saying, what do you need? Can I give it to you? And we're saying, oh, that's the one you like. And then you work with that one with your haltering and with the other things. So I guess kind of a short condensed version of how to start thinking of it differently. And again, I'm not giving you all the techniques, but I know we'll figure it out because I've seen your host. So just go ahead and keep thinking you're playing with it, and really notice, when I bring the halter up, do I think work now? Do everything the horse does that has a halter or a bridle or saddle or something as work? And so do I change myself in some way to go, now we're serious, instead of, hey, now we're just going to ride, and now we're just going to do this. And so it's all, I'm staying in that place for the horse, no matter what we're doing. And it works, this got into this discussion today about, do horses want to do the therapy work, or do they, are they just resigned to it? How do we get them to comply, or how them be if they tell us no? And I say, if a horse says no to me, that's more about me than it is about them. That's about I didn't get that horse to feel safe or secure or fun with me, and I failed that horse. He didn't fail me, because my horse doesn't feel like doing that today. I go, we have to do that today. Not have to, but this is what we're going to do today, and come join me. And I motivate you to come join me. And so hopefully that answered your question or gives you some things to
normally
play
they
with
say
there.
let them run until they tire and then they comply. That's dominance, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I like that. Thank
Yes.
you.
And that's why you see these programs, the horses are not reacting the way they want them to, because they're never addressing what the horse really needs. And that gets into that cycle. Once you start dominance, you always have to do it. Once you start relational, oh my gosh, it's about how I live my life and how I walk into a thing with a horse, and there's instant compliance. There's instant yeah, I'll do whatever you want. I don't have to go through that every single time, because I understand what relationships are, and I understand what something wants in a relationship. And because I've done it a long time, I can look at a horse generally and say, betcha he needs some of that. bet you that one needs comfort. I bet you that one needs serenity. That one needs fun. That, so this is tuning your intuition. And you will know sorry you did it because it makes everything easy. Everything is easy after that. Okay. And good point. Good. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for that. That was awesome. Okay. We'll go up to the next person on my list. Jenny. Jenny, I've talked to you. Hold on. I'll ask you to, and hopefully you will be there. Hi, Jenny. Can you hear
think I'm
me?
here. Hi, how are you? Can you talk? Can
Oh, good.
sorry, I'm
Yay.
bouncing.
Click on this. I'm so more excited about this than anything. So
I'll try again.
go ahead.
It's bouncing back to me, so I got to figure this out. Can you talk about releases
Okay.
and like particularly yawning? Is there a time that that's excessive or too much?
Too many releases or too excessive? Is that because you kind of broke up for a second? Is that right?
Yes. Is there a time when yawning is too much or excessive?
Okay. All right. Is a situation you can tell me about where you observed this happen?
I've lost connection.
Oh, shoot. Okay. I was going to ask you, can you hear me? I'll see if she comes back here. Kind of froze there, I think. I don't know. But excessive releasing. Um, it could be a horse that has just a really high trauma load. And so every time, if the person is going there in a state of they've already gotten themselves in a good space and okay, she's putting something in here. 5 or 6 times I was wondering about this as well. Okay. Other types of releases. Okay, there's lots of different types of releases. So the horse yawns about 5 or 6 times before I put the bridle on. I was wondering about this as well. And I don't know if there was a one before this. Let me see if I can find it. Okay. If there's more to that question, Jenny, just put it on again here, and I'll see. So it's interesting that there's 5 or 6 yawns before. So that could again be something that was now Jenny is going there with a different attitude and the horse is able to relax into that process, whereas before maybe it held a lot of tension in that bridling process. I don't know for sure. It would be interesting to see a video of what's really happening. As long as I feel like the horse's head is down, it's releasing, I just let them do that and I go, you know what, I think this will resolve after we're always in this good space. Now with bridling, it's not going to be stressful. What we're doing after the bridling is fun. Sort of going on what I just talked about too. There's lots of different releases, and this is really want to do some videos because there can be releases that are so incredibly subtle that most people don't even see them happen. And I've done some things with people that go, okay, did you see your horse just release there? And they're like, I didn't even know that was what that was, and I wouldn't have known to look for that. And so this is what this is about. This group is about, start to look for these really subtle things. Releases can happen in lots of ways. They can be, I've seen blinking can happen as the stress is coming up, and it can happen as the stress is resolved. So I've seen horses go to this place of release where they've been in sympathetic and you'll start to see real deliberate blinking starting to happen. I wait through all of this. I never interrupted. And then oftentimes I've seen them do it, a lot of blinking, and then really, really close their eyes hard. And then I'll see them start to have like tears coming out. And people don't realize that is actually a big, gigantic release from sympathetic to parasympathetic. And that, I mean, that's the extreme of like seeing some amazing releases. You can see it. I've seen it in their body flinching. I mean, not touching them, but watching them have through their body, their muscles will ripple. They'll twitch, and all these times when I'm seeing those things happening, I'm not doing anything to interrupt that process, because I think if we do, then they have to redo that. So I'm going to wait as a horse is doing something. Another place you'll see releases, they'll do the farting out the back, or they'll just lift their tail. They'll just lift their tail. So you're looking at very subtle things that the horse is doing to indicate that it's going from a more stressful situation to a less stressful one. So it's not necessarily that they're full blown into sympathetic, right? But they're just a little bit on the border, and then they have to want to try to release that to get back to a feeling a normal state. Okay. And what I do with horses a lot of times too, I'll see them touch a spot on their body, especially on one of their front legs. They'll touch one of the meridians on their leg, or scratch their nose or something like that. That's a release. And of course, blowing out. You'll see them oftentimes if a horse has been in a place where, they're just holding their breath a lot, and you'll see them finally like, they'll do like they'll finally catch their breath and then just let out a big breath. Okay. And I've seen horses actually like they're crying during the release. As I was doing that, I'm like, how little kids go, and then they let out, their cry. I've seen horses do that too during this release process. It's like, oh my God, he's right. We equate it to that because that's the only thing we know. But each horse is unique in their preferred method, I think, of releasing. I love to see the great big one with the yawn, and then the eye roll back, the third eyelid come over and roll. It's like their eyes roll back in their head. That's the real big release. And then after that, you'll often watch, if they've done that big release like that, they'll do a big swallow. So that's another one to watch for, is the big swallow. After the other day, horses were belching, if that makes any sense. I mean, it was like, wow, they're burping, like, so it's all your own horse and what you start to notice as a pattern of how their body wants to release and where it needs to release. This is an interesting one. I remember a horse that I was working on. I don't really, I do more like movement of energy and seeing where things are blocked, and then I do a thing on the back of the horse where I was hoarse because I felt like no energy moved through its body. When I went up to this horse, it was ice cold. I mean, I've never been up to a horse touch cold, like its entire body is ice cold. I'm like, wow, there is no energy moving through this horse. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show her how to move energy. Like, I don't do anything. I'm just showing her, here's how energy moves through my body. And then I touch her and go, this is how it can move through your body. And I just stand there for a moment, step back, and she broke out in a sweat. I mean, her withers, everything just started sweating. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the first time a horse has ever actually felt parts of his body and like it released in that way. So as you can see, there's like all these myriad of different ways that release can happen. And I like for people to go, you know what, I'm going to take a snapshot of my horse when I start, and then I'll know anything that's different, anything that happens during that time, and I'm going to be able to notice it, okay, because you made a mental snapshot of what it looked like before. And as you start to go and work with your own horse, you'll see those preferred ways to release. And so I don't know. I think I don't know if I've caught them all. Because every time I'm like, oh, look at that. And so maybe I've forgotten to say some of the ways that releases are happening. But again, I never interrupt the process, nor do I stay looking at the horse during that release. And I think this is an important part because sometimes you get really focused on, okay, wow, look at this release happening. And you're just like, you're laser focused on this horse, like, oh, I'm going to watch it. And it actually kind of interrupts it. So I always feel like I want to be polite. And I turn my energy center away from that horse during his releases. And I keep an eye on it. I know what's going on, but I don't do laser focus on that animal because I think it's part of that respect of, oh, wow, I know you're letting go of something. This is what was funny about Sarge. Remember, Sarge came over and he wanted fun, and he was right there. And then I'm like, okay, I'm just going to give him a little taste of like something, like he could let something go. And I told the lady, it was like, Sarge seems pretty stoic, so I'll bet you he finds a spot to go where I can't see his release. And sure enough, like I give that, he walks off and he puts his head over. We were outside, and so the half stall door was closed, and he put his head over that, and I could see him yawning like crazy over there. But it was like really private for him, like, yeah, well, real men don't cry in front of people. It was that Sarge kind of mentality, like, I'm not going to show you that I can do it. And then he came back for more, and it was like, more please. And so I gave him just a little hit of something, and then it's like hell broke loose. He let go of and he was like, yeah, nothing happened when I was releasing, and you honored that, and you didn't go over there, and I got to look at this and be there and do, and so I think that made him like really happy, like, oh, I can do it now in front of you because now I trust you that you're not going to do that. It's okay to be vulnerable. And so just kind of keeping these things in mind as we do these releases and paying attention. And that's all that we're doing now in this group is we're becoming great observers of our horses. And once you do, you can't not be an observer anymore. That's the problem with this. It's like when I told you at the beginning, when people tell me not to notice things, yeah, but that's like me you telling me keep your eyes open and don't see. It's not possible. No longer possible. And now as you have these things and you're watching, you're going to notice and you're going to see them in other horses and you're going to know what they mean. And you're going to respect that horse and what is, if you're able to give it a little hit of fun as you pass by, this is great. But they're all tiny little pieces of this bigger picture that we're creating for our horse as far as our relationships with them. And I believe like there's something about once you do this for a while, the horses recognize people that are like this and they gravitate because they honor you for honoring them. And somehow they know. And at the same time, I'm really careful, and I've said this before, I'm very careful about this energy work because I didn't name the book Sacred Spaces because I thought it should be exploited and people should make tons of money and get lots of attention. I did it because I consider it really sacred, and so I want to honor that for my horses and for me, for everybody in this group, that it's always a sacred space, and I don't take anything for granted, and I don't go out and boast about things that happen or things I can do because I think that's dishonoring it. And there's plenty of people that are doing doing just that, is trying to exploit it and gain attention to themselves. And I'm always like, oh no, I tell Leslie, it's like, oh no, Leslie, there's more people on this site. What are we going to do? And I'm like, oh, this is great. It's great that there's more people. But it was not expected. And I just, I'm always grateful every day when I look and say, wow, people are still here. people are still dedicated to helping their horses. This is wonderful. So let's see, I've got 2 more people and I will try to get to, I'll do the 2 more questions and I would not even try to say your name and I'll let you do it. Let me unmute you and and you will do your best to pronounce your name. And
Ritambra. And you can call me Ritzy.
oh,
Did you
oh, thank goodness.
Yeah. You know,
Okay, so what's your question?
I have just a quick question about when you say you give them a little hit of fun. You know, you're talking about Sarge and you give them a little hit of fun. Do you bring that into your body, into your movement at all, or is it all just energy? Or you bring comfort to a horse? You know, I want to reach out and put my hand on. You know, I want to do something. Is there a time where you actually do something, or is it really all just energy?
That's a really good question. I think it's both, a little bit of both, and I think this is what's great about our first question is and it drew us to that place where can we recreate different emotions, and how quickly can we go back and forth be different ones and recreate them in our body, and I'm thinking, you know, this is such a great question because now you're making me think how to happen. I believe it's both. I believe that I put it in there, like I can be standing there and I put that feeling in, but then it's almost like my body to do some things too to align with what I'm thinking and what my emotion is. So I do believe there's if I were, for example, let's say a lot of times there's a horse that won't lead, okay, and so the person is pulling is like the horse won't come with me, and I go, okay, so let's figure out what does our horse want to follow, you know, what would be enticing, and so I will think of that thing and then I put it in my mind, in my emotions, and then I do believe my posture changes to maybe not a lot, but it does align with that. And I will go forward with more gusto, or I'll do something that is a little bit different. So, yeah, that's a perfect question. And this gets into that place where we're going with all of this. Can we then align what we're doing without getting over the top? Like, you know, sometimes it's too much. Like I've seen people like get too much into the part of that energy, and then it almost shuts everything down. So this is where we again experiment. How much does that horse need from a physical point versus that just the energy place of us thinking and creating that energy. When you get really good at it, you can project your energy in different ways, and that's what when I do riding with people and they, let's say they have a slow horse or they're not, you know, I'll tell them where to project their energy. Sometimes they're projecting too much forward, and I can look and say, wow, your horse is going too fast, but it's not saying the same thing in your body. So where, like, just your energy was projecting too far forward. In just a little bit, and then the horse got slower, and she didn't change anything in the body. It was very interesting. So, you know, this is an advanced question. I love this group because now we're looking at those things and saying, let's just play with it and see what you do and see how your horse reacts. Is it just, will they react just to that physical or that internal energy, or do they need a little boost of something else from me from a physical standpoint? So that's pretty good and gives me more things to think about here, about a better way to explain it to you. But hopefully that helped, and I think we're all going to just start thinking about that in a different way, even me, about like, wow, how does that really happen? Great, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and then Leslie, last one.
Hello. So I have
I
a
think I
question,
sent you.
Susan. I've kind of gotten it down, like getting them really relaxed and hanging out with me. And yawning and, being like almost half comatose. So when we're starting to get ready to ride and to do things, what should be the change of the energy level and the thinking and the mental imagery when it's time to get them to put to work? And now that our snow's finally melting here now, we can get out riding again. So what
Yeah.
should be the mental imagery of getting them ready to go? And okay, now we're going to go work and we're going to go have some fun. And should it just be projecting a higher energy level all around?
Right.
Or
What I like to do, and again, Leslie, this is one of those more advanced questions as you start getting more aware of things. One of the greatest things as far as athletes, and that's where I came from, that sports psychology, and this is where a lot of these concepts come from as far as how we do visualization and energy and project it in different situations. We got the relaxation. And now it's like, can we keep the relaxation in our body and our mind? See, there's two places where relaxation happens. It's both the body and the mind. I think the mind comes first. You have to be relaxed there, and then the body. Um, so it's checking in to see, can I stay in that same place that I feel when my horses are at base where they're super relaxed? Can I keep that feeling in my body, but at the same time raise up, go, yes, now we're doing this. Okay, so it's like you stay, but you keep checking in. Wow, my body still feels relaxed. My body still feels relaxed. Okay, and it's that fine line between when does tension start coming in or anxiety. And so this again is one of those really sophisticated higher end abilities, is like, okay, we can take this now and go, yeah, let's go here. And then if you find when you raise your, this is like just the last question here, this is where you start playing. What does this horse need? Because every horse is going to be different about, do I turn the dial up that much or do I turn it up that much? Or like, so you'll play with that. And this is getting you to become such a really in tune horse person, because you go, okay, I'm going to raise my energy and I'm going to get a little more. And the horse went, wow. And oops, that was too much. I got to do just a little bit less. Okay. And so you just think of it as tuning that dial of your energy up or down, depending on what that horse needs. I've ridden a lot of like what they call high energy horses. I love them because that dial is so big. Like you can go from one to the other and like, wow, 1 second you're way up here and then you can dial it way down here. And you've got all these in between spaces, and horses that you feel like you've got to like, you dial it, and nothing's happening. And those are the ones that I find harder because there is very little room for the amount of energy change you're trying to do, and they have very little reaction to it. So again, this is a very personal thing based on your energy level and the horse and how much you need to do. So it's one of those where I love to work with people when we get to this space, because then we can, okay, now more, now less, now more. One of the things I heard, and I believe it's true, is like when you find a horse whose level is exactly like yours, it's effortless. Like the dial is really tiny. Okay. And say that there was one horse I had where it's like, believe it or not, I'm really pretty high energy. This is where it looks like I'm not high energy. People go, you talk slow, you relax. It's like, oh yeah, but you don't know what energy runs underneath here. It runs a lot. But that horse, it was super hot, but it was like, oh my gosh, it was so much fun because I could dial that wherever it needed to be, and it was instantaneous, the response from that horse. But this is also the horse going, yeah, Leslie, now you have more than one energy thing that you're going to ask me for. Let me start listening to you also. Because when you get to that place where it's just perfectly in alignment with your energy versus them, like I said, it feels so effortless, and you get into that relaxed space and you go, oh my God, we got incredible amounts of energy on my end. Like, this is just flowing. It's so wonderful. So again, these are things you can play with now. Now that you know you can dial down, because for the most part, I'm finding people need to dial their horses way down because there's so much anxiety in horses. And people need place before they need the dial up place. So it sounds like you're ready for the other.
So just start out really, really relaxed then and go from there, it sounds like. So, and if they need a little more energy, then
Right.
we had plenty
And
of
just
energy
always,
today, as you saw.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, just a little bit. That's when you needed like the dial down. And that's why I love it. Is like from what you guys are all doing on the site is like you down. And like I said, that's the most important one. It's like if we're going to be safe, we need the dial down one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and being able to being very specific, it's like, here's this channel, like when we dial for a radio station, if you're kind of in between, you get static. If you're right on that station, you got it. Okay. And one station plays fun, uplifting rock music. One station plays slow, so maybe you think of it in that terms of like, going to dial down to the slow station, all the romantic music. And then maybe I need some rock music. Okay. And
Okay.
it's like, yeah. So just play with that one.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Gosh, thank you guys. I'm gonna I guess wrap it up. We did longer than I thought. Now we're in what, 45 minutes? Now we're in 15 minutes, something like that. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and kind of end tonight. And I appreciate you guys all being here for me again, even though I missed a few weeks, and who knows what's going to come, but I will announce the Zoom meetings as I can get them done, and we can meet here, and maybe I'll do things like this where, people can have some questions, because I liked how this flowed tonight. You can give me some feedback on that too, if you like this format where I talked a little bit and then we had some time for questions. It felt good to me, and I feel like I'm now a little more adept at this, thanks to Carolyn's great direction through Zoom, and we'll get this down. And I'm going to be working on the classes and see what's done on that, so that we can do it. And probably the classes will end up kind of similar to this, where I talk for a little bit of time and then people in the class can ask their questions. And so this is my training for when I do my live classes, so that I'll be a little better off for you guys. So anyway, thank you all, and I will see you on the site, I hope, and I'll see you here next week, perhaps. We will see you later.